Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother Nafis Abu Zaid here with my co-host.
This is your brother Aqil Ingram.
And this is your brother Abdul Haq Baker.
Naam, we're back with another episode. This is episode 7 by the permission of Allah Jalla wa ala, which is a continuation of the cognitive model, um, the third stage, which is the adult stage. And we titled this particular episode Bridging the Gap Between the Youth and Elder. Hopefully, we can lay out some solid points that will help bridge that gap, help bring it closer together. Me and my co-host together, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Brother Aqil, you want to kickstart this aspect?
Sure. I would like to open the discussion by giving us a starting point. And the starting point I will open with is honestly a question. At what point does that gap begin between those that are old and those that are younger? What do we think?
I think that's a very interesting and fascinating question, because what we need to look at are historical demographics, and we have to look at societal demographics as well. And I'm speaking societally from a Western perspective, because when we refer to our childhood, and I think we're around similar ages, give or take a few years and everything, we know that there were particular apparatus in place and how we would automatically, psychologically interact and respect our elders. But when we place a different context and societal context and time, like today, that has been eroded. And there are various factors and reasons why that's been eroded and continue to be eroded. So I think there are particular aspects that we would need to look at there. But then when we're looking at the my theoretical cognitive development model, you can also place individuals at various stages of this particular model to identify where some of these issues are emanating from. So we spoke a few weeks ago about the youth or the young people being very haughty and disdainful at the youthful stage, this stage of activism, idealism, still upon abstract knowledge, but they've moved from the founding stage to the youthful phase, and they feel that they've acquired knowledge, when in actuality, all they've acquired is information and data. Okay, and because of this overzealousness, which we see in conversion theory, whether it's within Islam or other faiths, that there's this what we would call hype and hyperactivity, and therefore they may then look at their elders, as we've mentioned, and see that the access to information, which is knowledge, but they haven't processed it as knowledge yet because they lack the maturity to do so. They see that maybe their elders, who are at the adult stage now or beyond, didn't have such access or didn't act upon such knowledge that was there with them. So they then therefore start feeling that they are at a degree higher as it relates to knowledge, access to scholars, than their elders. So if, for example, that elder, as they see them, had gone through those stages of learning and acquired the same knowledge that they have, and is therefore more knowledgeable, therefore more attached to the ulama, whether they be in the Middle East or wherever, and they are established personalities within their own communities, it becomes a little bit more difficult for those younger individuals to actually denigrate or castigate or marginalize that individual, because he or she is already established in their community and the wider society. It doesn't mean it won't happen. As we well know, they will still target such individuals. But these individuals have put in the work. They are entrenched within their society. They've built up the respects and the networks therein. And they're seasoned. I think the word is they're seasoned. So looking at the stages that they may be at can help determine how to deal with the gap that has come about. And of course, traversing all of that has to be the prophetic model with regards to how the Prophet ﷺ treated the young, the etiquettes and the ethics of treating the young, the ayat, the Quranic verses that speak about the relationship between the elder and the younger, the parent and the child. That all has to traverse all of what I've just mentioned of this theoretical model.
Okay. All right. So if we're saying that there are societal causes and let's call it for lack of a better term, academic causes in the growth of one's education. Our society is a society that is a very individualized society, and there is a familial gap, right? Because we're so hyper focused on the individual. Um, if that is true, and if the challenge is in the academic trajectory of the individual, does that mean then this is what we are combating? We are combating individualism, and we're combating an incorrect academic trajectory.
Before I
Absolutely.
before going into that question, I want to go back and at least try to give my input on the first question you asked, Brother Aqil, because you did say at which point do this gap start? Where do it actually start from between the elder and the youth? And honestly, I just want to mention that were you intending a certain age bracket where this acknowledgement should be taking place? If that's what you was alluded to in your question, Brother Akil?
Not so much a particular age, in so much as a point of event, right?
Okay.
I would think that there is something taking place consistently at a given point if the result is consistent at a given point, right? So if the result is consistent at a given point, which we have a gap between those that are older and those that are younger, it has to have started from some point where we can identify the divergence, right? There must be an event that has caused this, right? And I'm saying event loosely. It may be a series of events, it may be different events, but it may be something common across the board that maybe we can identify.
Okay, tell you. And I think last week's show we hit on some of those events that you're talking about that at that time period when we did see a gap starting to actually form. And that was during the time period of the youth learning knowledge and not properly either understanding it or misapplying it, right? Which in terms make it abstract, as our brother um, Dr. Abdul Haq Baker actually pointed out in his framework. Nonetheless, and the elders, all right, the seniors, by not getting the proper respect or being disrespected or even put to the side, have somewhat either became frustrated, just played the background and didn't want to go through all of the hassle of, the struggle between those, the young, who was eager and was sucking up the Islamic information, and they didn't want to make it seem like it was an outright battle. So they went their way and they went their way, which actually brought about this gap. Allahu Alam.
Good. Solid point. So now again, so you're speaking to an incorrect academic trajectory, right? Our development in knowledge. Okay, good. And also we see with individualism, and I want to say hyper individualism, because individualism in itself isn't necessarily a negative thing, right? Having personality and character adds value. So my next question then becomes, and we can go into our focus from here, is which battle are we choosing to fight, right? Are we choosing to fight the entire of society in our current postmodern direction, right? In this hyper individualistic society, or are we choosing the battle of correcting the academic trajectory, right? Or do we think we can take up both fights at the same time in order to begin correcting the issue?
I think that's a good question. It's an important question. I feel that what we did in answering your question, we need to reflect on what was done before in the US and the UK. And I believe that the initial focus inwardly, the insularity that happened amongst our communities, to an extent was understandable. Was it acceptable? Then we would all have different views and perspectives on that. But it was understandable because talk about our era of growing, we needed to change particular paradigms of understanding and therefore immerse ourselves in the learning of our faith as it came to Tawheed, the learning of our faith as it came to understand Prophet Prophet's lifestyle and how we could contextualize that within our own environments, communities, society. However, when that particular trajectory continued at all, disregarding everything else, then we started seeing something that the dean should have removed us from, and that is ghettoization. Okay, that is ghettoization. When we look at Islam as a faith and a deen of empowerment, we've seen what it's done across the world, across societies, historically, and even today. But when that focus is on the first aspect of the question that you asked, focusing solely on this, so you've got professional men and women leaving, which are permissible professions, because they believe the only way to be as a Muslim is as a student of knowledge. So then they start removing themselves from these perfectly good professions. You have individuals removing themselves from various aspects of academic education because they believe that from the infusion of knowledge that they get in religious knowledge, which is new, which is exciting, which is empowering, that's all that is needed. And this leads to the miscontextualization of how we develop as Muslims and how we develop as communities. So to conclude on the question, it needs to be a multi-pronged or multi-faceted approach in which members of the communities are identified for their respective strengths to come together as a collective and tackle these various issues, but not to basically discard other issues and say we've just got to look inwardly, solely insular. And this is going to be the premise of our our existence in the West.
Okay, just so I can highlight some points here. One, I wanted to define in the Quran and the Sunnah, how do we understand a elder, a senior? What is a senior? When we look at the Islamic text, we find that the senior has many different meanings, and it doesn't just refer to sin, age. Okay, so the senior is just, and it's a point just to ducktail right behind what you're saying, Doctor Abdul Baker. One, we know that in the ahadith, the narrations, the Prophet ﷺ said, Al barakah ma'akabirukum, right? The blessings is with your seniors, with your elders. The ulama of hadith, they mentioned that what's meant in this particular hadith of the word kabir, it can refer to what we call the people of knowledge. And this necessitates they actually be elders. All right. We have many major scholars who were young. I'm talking about in their 40s. I'm talking about in their 30, 36, up to their 40s, even till they, even before they would reach 50. Right. Also, they mentioned that Kabir also can mention, it can refer to the people of knowledge, and it can refer to the person of status, which you was mentioning before, Dr. Hockmaker. People who
Right.
had these statuses in these positions in their lives when Islam came in, did they have to abandon those positions now because they wanted to focus internally? And now they want to, do they have to, to be a student of knowledge, you can't occupy that position? No. Also, the meaning of Kabir is, we also find that it deals with age, sin, right? It deals with age. What is my point of saying this? My point of bringing everything in a circle is just so that we can understand that knowledge, right? If you look in all these narrations, you're going to find knowledge being at the head of it. whether young or old. And I
Right.
think if we learn to respect knowledge, then we can pretty much put a balance on all of this. It's not to downplay our elders, it's not to downplay our seniors, but the Prophet ﷺ is one who has set this standard. He placed it Usama ibn Zayd as a general over top of senior elders. I mean seniors over top of the elders. And with many companions that was older than Usama bin Zayd, but the Prophet ﷺ still gave him command. And the companions during the time of the Prophet ﷺ is a statement that they mentioned that during our time, the one who has memorized Baqarah, I'm not talking about just memory. You know what I mean? It was actually fuqaha of it. You know what I mean? Faqih, as Sheikh Fawzan pointed, that the one who does, they are hold in high esteem in our eyes. Again, that goes back to what? Knowledge. So knowledge was the determined factor, is what I'm saying, more so than just being in the age.
What you've said is key. It's very key, brother Nafis. Jazakallah khair for that. And
And
then
I'm
I
talking
think,
about knowledge of deen, by the way.
yeah,
I'm talking
that's
about
right.
knowledge
That's
of
right.
deen.
Yeah, but then now I would say we need to unpack that further, because with the youth hearing this, we've seen that what they have understood to be knowledge on the surface and in the text, in the matan, is knowledge. But in them acquiring what they have acquired in the way that they've acquired it, it has not produced or yielded what knowledge should produce or yield or manifest. So the example you gave of Osama bin Zayd is beautiful, because what we see is a humility towards the elders while leading them. This is what we do not see among the younger generation today. And when we were at that stage, we did exactly the same. I'll speak for myself. The haughtiness, the arrogance, the thinking that we knew better. I was guilty of that myself until I listened more to the elders, and I realized that we needed humility in order for the knowledge to benefit us. Because let's be frank, knowledge should humble you. It should cause humility in the one acquiring that knowledge. And we only have to look at the ulama. And then if we want to look at some of the young scholars, the young students of knowledge, and they may have come from a jahiliyyah where they were wild. We know a lot of individuals who were wild in their jahiliyyah. They went away and studied. Even if they didn't go away and study, some of you may have self-studied, but with reference to scholars and everything, the inevitable result of that in what we see is those individuals have become humble. They've become humble. The knowledge that they're carrying, or the little that they know, has caused them to discern their position as a human being and with regards to the people they interact with. When it's doing opposite to that, this is what I'm going to throw back at you both now. Is that actually knowledge, when we're seeing that the fruits of that are in contrast to everything that knowledge should do to us? Is it actually knowledge if the fruits are opposite? Arrogance, haughtiness, pride, disdain. Are these the fruits of knowledge?
Okay, good. So, obviously not, right? Similar to the ilm al-amal, the fruit of knowledge is action, right? Beneficial knowledge. So, what I would say to that, just attempting to add some value to what you're saying, is we come into a space where knowledge is being conveyed or information is being conveyed. However, we also have to include in the conveyance of knowledge the relativity of the knowledge. How relatable and applicable is the knowledge that we are conveying, right? Number one. Because we may be conveying knowledge that may be applicable to a different place or a different time, right? Instead of what's actually in front of us at present. That's number one. Number two is there has to be a vision with the knowledge being conveyed. where are we taking these people to? It's not just information for the sake of information. It's a medium, right? Where we're looking to develop the human being in spirituality, in even in physicality, right? And in lifestyle toward a particular end. So then what is that end that we're aiming toward? And then number three, again, that there has to be there has to be a cultural insulation, and I'll explain what I mean by that. What I mean by that is what you were speaking to earlier, Dr. Baker, that you described as a ghettoization, right? Um, we can look at that, but really that's culture, right? That is a cultural type that's being infused with conveyance of knowledge and with religiosity. And and that culture, when we say ghettoization, it can often mean, but not necessarily limited to, it can mean prison culture and street culture, that being infused with the lifestyle of the person that is seeking to learn and practice Islam. And the challenge with that is, and I say this as an individual that worked in the prison system for a number of years, at least in the American prison system. Um, the the rules that apply in order to survive and function in the prison system do not work out in society. They
Right.
don't work. It can allow you to function inside of a prison system, but not out here, right? You're asking for dysfunction. Um, also, if we're speaking to what we call street culture, okay, that can apply to a degree in the streets. But if we're not in the streets, again, we're asking for a lot of dysfunction, right? Again, I would say that these three, we have to be conscious of them, and then situate them properly as the information is being conveyed in exchange between both the youth and the elder, in order to get to where we're trying to go and heal this problem.
Okay, Tayyip. Thank you, brother Aqil. I want to mention something that maybe you guys probably didn't get a chance to mention it, so maybe I might beat you guys to mention it. Is that I want us to look at how the Prophet ﷺ gave us solutions to bridge the gap. The Prophet ﷺ, in many multiple narrations, gave a solution to bridge the gap between the elder and the youth, right? And he mentioned in multiple narrations, our brother Akil probably got to come back in. He mentioned in multiple narrations, the Prophet ﷺ said in one narration, he said, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صَغِيرَنَا, right? And he says, وَيَعْرِفْ, he says, مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صَغِيرَنَا وَيُوَكِّرُ كَبِيرَنَا. In this narration, the Prophet ﷺ said, they are not from us who does not show, bring brother Akil. Akil, you there? They are
I'm with you.
not
Go ahead.
from us who does not show mercy to our young, meaning to the youth, and they do not show honor and respect to our elders, right? In another riwayah, he mentions those who don't know, يَعْرِفْ حَقْ كَبِيرِنَا, those who doesn't know the right of our elders. All right. And another narration, the Prophet was something, not that they don't know the rights just of our elders. In another narration, and there's multiple narrations, so I don't want to go too long on this, but I just want to show you how the Prophet ﷺ gave solutions between bridging that gap. So the main thing that he highlighted was the mercy that must be shown to the youth, right? From the elders' perspective, right? And even though Sheikh Al-Albani said that it should be from both perspectives, meaning the compassion should be shown from the youth to the elders as well as the elders to the youth, right? Also, on top of that, not knowing the rights of our elders. And even though the ulama, they say that the scholars are, again, like we said, we brought the different definitions of Kabir. The scholars are, mentioned in that, not just the elderly or the elder, right? Nonetheless, I think that's a platform to start. That if we look at the prophetic solution, mercy, compassion, which we as believers have been commanded to, not just as children. Allah commanded us to what? وَقْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ, right? مِنَ الذُّلِّ. As far as the parents, if they attain old age, then lower the wing of humility towards them and show this, this rahmah towards them. Also, Allah tells Muhammad, وَقْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِمَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Lower your wing of humility to those who follow you from amongst the believers. This type of mercy showing, as Allah Jalla mentioned, Muhammadun Rasulullah, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. All right, Waladina ma'ahu, and those along with him, ashidda ala kufar, they are severe and stern against the disbelievers, ruhama bainahum, but they are also merciful towards one another. So we know that the mercy that known to be shown is one of the solutions that will bridge the gap. Also recognizing the right, the right. Now, our youth need to understand that the kabir from amongst the people of knowledge, from amongst the people of position, from amongst the people of age, has a right over us. You understand? And that right need to be fulfilled. I think these are two solutions, prophetic solutions, if I can call them that.
And they are. And I think it's excellent that you brought those, Nafis, again, mashallah. Now there's a key issue that we need to look at here, which I think the three of us and our viewers will identify. Who predicates showing mercy and the rights first? And the reason I ask that, because I'm going to shift the focus now. Many of the elders will not show or display mercy to the youth or the younger ones because they believe, due to their experience, due to them traversing to the stage where they've reached the adult stage in religion, in life skills and experience and everything like that, that those who are following up the rear, the youth who are coming up, must show that respect and deference first. Now, the question has to be asked there on that. I've got multiple layers I want to unpack here before I throw it back to yourself. Because I think it's very important what you said. These two perspectives, which are integral to bridging the gap, but which one precedes the other? So if the elders now are seeking that respect, that reverence, that acknowledgement, the question has to be asked, is that within the deen, that is what comes first? Or are we, as elders, those of us who are elders, referring back to or hearkening back to a pre-conversion stage of our lives where it was automatic that the elders got props? He's an OG. Let me finish the thing. He's an OG, okay? She was the mother of the crew or of the family of the community. And that transfers to Islam, mother OG. So there's nothing wrong with that. As we know, the best of you in Jahiliyyah is the best of you in the deen. You carry out some of the best characteristics and worse, unfortunately, when we come into the deen. So is that something that is causing an inhibition from the elders' perspective, that they will not show mercy and can be harsh and can be dismissive and also can be protective of what they are holding of community status, of leadership positions within the community, because they've not been given the acknowledgement for what they've done, who they are, what they've achieved, their prior lives? Is that a problem from the elders' perspective, and why many treat the younger generation with harshness, and why they will not open up the door to give the opportunities of development, growth, leadership, and replacement of themselves? So from that side, looking from the elder side, these are areas that I want to throw across to you both to ask, what is the reason for this? Because it does exist. No.
Can we address just the first part? Because that was a long, extensive question, right? Can we address just the first part? If you go back to the wording of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he starts with who? He starts with the elders showing mercy to who? To the young.
Yes, right? Mashallah. Yes.
If you look at the wording, he starts with the elders showing mercy. And if you look what he says to the youth, that the elders have a haq. There's a beautiful hadith that has been narrated by Abu Dawood, where he mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ says, "Inna min ijlalillah ta'ala," right? Ikrama lishaybati al-muslim, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, out of the glorification, indeed out of the glorification of Allah Almighty, is to honor the gray-haired Muslim, right? The elder, right? Someone who has some seniority, right? And he mentioned other things too, but that's just the point I want to bring from the hadith. The youth need to recognize that there is a fadl, there is a virtue, There is a right. This is their responsibility. What if you look in the hadith, the elders need the Lord a wing of mercy and humility towards the youth, which is their responsibility. It's not about what you put forth. Because if we go back into all of the different narrations, it's still going to go back before we even get to age, it's going to go back to knowledge. If we go back to the narration that we mentioned before in the other episode where the Prophet was talking about imam, about leadership and selecting him, he doesn't mention age until last. He mentioned actually knowledge first. Those who are most read in the book of Allah, that's knowledge. Those who know the sunnah most, if they are equal in that, that's knowledge. Then he goes to hijrah. He doesn't go to sin yet. Then he goes, if they're equal in that, then he goes to who accepted Islam first. If they're equal to that, then it's sin, it's age. Not to downplay age, but knowledge takes precedent. No matter what age you are, if Allah gives you with that knowledge, that takes precedent because that's, you know what I mean? But knowledge and proper understanding is what you're talking about, which will allow them to have the humility that they're supposed to show, right? Then the proper application. A lot of times the youth don't learn that etiquette. They learn information and they're eager to discern it, but they're not eager to actually adopt it or to put it into play. So knowledge is why you find a statement of Sheikh Osama Tami. I'm about to let you go, Aqil. You find a statement of Sheikh Osama Tami. He says that the people who are the most merciful to creation are Ahlul Sunnah. Well, Jama'ah, he's talking about the ulama, those who are well learned. Why? Because they have knowledge. Knowledge mandates that you are what? Compassionate.
Right.
That you are humble, right? That you show humility, that you show mercy to those who do not know, those who are less. It mandates that. But if you are not taught that way and you just grabbing all of this information, right? And you add in the ghettoization, the street knowledge, right? The prison knowledge. And you think that, okay, this is what I have to do. I got to be this way. And I don't care if you 45 or you 46 or if you 50 or 60. I care less about that stuff. I don't care about that. You don't know this. You need to be listening to me. That's bad edit. I don't even go along with the type of knowledge. And I think that's what you're harping on. Moving
Right.
people out of their position. I think that's what
Yes.
you're harping on. Inshallah, brother Aqil, you can
Sure.
wrap up some stuff.
Sure. And further fortifying what you're saying, Defease, and I do agree that the elder should be taking the lead on this. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is mentioned, Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman. Those who are merciful, then the all merciful will be merciful to them. Yarhamu min fil ard yarhamkum min fis sama. So be merciful to the inhabitants of the earth. The one who is above the heavens will be merciful to you. And to the point that you're both making, it is an expectation of those who are now older to receive that respect from those that are younger without having to say, do anything or train toward that. However, the way that some of our younger people are coming up now, that is not the presentation of life that they've been given.
Right.
So they may just largely be just unaware that is the expectation, right?
Mm.
So because of that, and along with the hadith that Nafis and I have mentioned, I do believe that the elders do need to take the lead on that and provide training, right? Training and a rearing to those that are younger, by way of their edep toward them, by way of their mannerism toward them, and that may come from them showing respect to those who are younger, so that those who are younger can learn how to respect and then give that respect to those who are older. And this will come along with inclusion and being genuine. We have multiple examples of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam allowing those who are younger than him to be around him in his life, at times even inside of his household, right, out in society, on travel with him, or moving around the town with him, or stopping to check in on someone, right, who is younger than him, right? We have numerous examples of that. Yeah, Abu Umayr, ma fa'al an-Nughayr, as he used to play with the young boy, right? O Abu Umair, right? What happened to the hopo bird, right? Thus and so. There are numerous examples of inclusion with him, inclusion with pets, inclusion with prayer, inclusion with battle and leadership, inclusion at times, not always, inclusion in adult discussions, right? Inclusion. And you also have examples of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam being genuine with people, because people can feel when you are being genuine with them and when you actually care about them, right?
Nice
Um,
point.
saying something that is right, uh, doing something that is right is a different thing from wanting good from the person that you're interacting with. It's a different thing, right? And we have examples with the Prophet ﷺ where he would be so genuine with people that at times we have certain companions who thought that it's not possible that there's anyone else that he loves more than me because of how genuine he was with people.
No,
Right.
mashallah.
So if we find that we begin to be this way, we're merciful, we're respectful, we begin to include those that are younger into some adult situations so they can have exposure, and we're genuine with them. I believe that we can bend around this corner, and Allah knows best.
And the brother Abdul Haq Baker, I think honestly, brother Aqil, the way that the dean was set up, it was a preparation given first to the youth to establish that respect, and it came from the parents.
Right.
It came from recognizing the hukukul walidain. And if you look at the verses in the Quran, Allah Jalla mentioned that. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. Right? وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah Jalla says, and your Lord has decreed that you worship none except Him. And that you be what? You show this respect, this dutiful and goodness and kindness towards who? Towards your parents. If one or both reach or attain old age, etc., etc. But you see, if they learn how to have proper respect via their parents, it will actually extend, and it should extend, hopefully, to those who are also elders outside of their parents. We're living in a time where the children don't have the proper respect or fulfilling the hukuk, the rights that is deserving of their parents. So, in terms, how can we expect them to have the proper respect for those outside of them? What do you think about that point?
I think it's an excellent point, and to endorse what both of you are saying, it's something I was speaking a few weeks ago with family, with my wife, in fact, and when she mentioned this point to me, it actually made me pause there and then, and I've discussed it since then. Our younger generation are living in a time that is unique to them in the sense that we always had that connectivity with our elders and that traditional line of our elders and our values, whether they were street culture, whatever it was, there was a code. There's a disconnect with our children because we are no longer that connectivity, that connection line. Their connection line is now social media and whoever they've attached themselves to, who are they're following or who are following them. So they circumvent everything that we give them, or they validate or invalidate everything they hear from us as parents with other peers who are going through the same things or not with their parents, and that becomes their narrative. So
excellent point. Excellent.
All of us are facing that now, in that our children speak back to us. We have our conversations, and when we are speaking to them, are interjected, and they're speaking from a point as though they know better. You'll hear the terms "my generation," "you don't understand." Now, we had that when we were younger, like we are younger, we're the generation. But when our parents and elders would sit us down and explain, we know exactly where you're coming from, and they would give us anecdotal evidence. We would step back knowing, okay, they've been through that. But because of this technological age now, there's an element of accuracy when our children say, you don't know what we're going through, because we don't, because they're now attached and they are in the matrix and they are with social media. But then we can still say to them, by virtue of our maturation and life experiences, we do know what they're going through. But because they cannot see it, The extent of the disconnect is such they cannot see it, so they're totally disenfranchised from the family home while they're in the family home, disenfranchised from us while they are with us because of what is happening with social media. So I think what you've said, Brother Nafis, and what you're saying, Aqil, is so important. The hadith and the framework of the deen and these prophetic narrations are so important. But what we've got to look at is that we've also got the influence and the pull of the wider society. You've got social media and what's happening there, but the wider society saying corporal punishment not allowed. In the UK, it's there. It's been there for a number of years. You cannot smack
Same
your
in
child.
US. Same in US.
Right. You've got as well, the child can petition to the law of the land and the courts that I don't want to practice my religion. They will turn up at your doorstep and take your child from you immediately. Your child can say, I don't want to be with my parents, and they are keeping me within one gender. I don't feel like a boy, I don't feel like a girl, and the society comes in, and our children know that. So therefore, our children have got so many aspects of society that they can weaponize against their parents. We never used to weaponize things against our parents in the past, even if we felt our parents were beating us black and blue, which was incorrect. But we wouldn't go to the authorities and say, if it's abuse, it's abuse. If it's sexual abuse or serious violent abuse, then yes, the community would come in, there would be interventions. But what I'm saying is nominal, normal, regular parenting, aspects of that now have been weaponized by the state, and our children are aware of that, and some even tap into that to cause an even bigger gap between the elders, the parents, the more mature community.
I agree.
I agree. I agree as well. And there was some excellent points that you pointed out, because I think that's where it starts at. When we keep asking ourselves, where do it start at for the youth to have respect for the elders? I believe it starts at the home.
Yeah.
And I believe, honestly, it's a bigger job now, as you say, as far as the agendas of the wider society that we live in, that we have to be even more. We definitely have to make dua to Allah Jalla wa Ala to keep a tight rein on our children. And on top of that, we're going to have to actually try to edge in them the importance of understanding the rights of their parents.
Right.
Because there are scenarios, and I know you're aware of it, Aqil, I know you're aware of it too, Brother Hawk, whether over there in Britain, there are scenarios where the children have said not only the most offensive things towards their parents, but just the fact, it was a time that you wouldn't even think talking like that. An individual telling his father, the next time I see you, you better strap up. Statements such as this, it's like, you wouldn't even think of ever, saying words like that. But we are living in that time, like you said, because there are other things and other agendas and other agents, such as the brother mentioned, the TV, such as, the social media, that are leading and rearing and cultivating our children rather than actually the Quran and the Sunnah and the parent himself or herself, right? And that becomes a challenge. So the first school should be in the home. The first rearing and cultivation should be done in the home, right? So if the child is not having that connection there, what makes you think he's going to have respect or she's going to have respect for the elder, outside of that environment?
And can I just interject before handing it back to Aqil?
Yeah.
Just and the finer element of what you said, Brother Nafis, as well, and it's so important. Those who are upon the Sunnah and those who may not be adhering to the Sunnah because they have different ideas or positions. It's even more important in all of that to have knowledge of and impart Sunnah in our home by our own behavior and to our children. Because also on social media, you have got narratives that are saying, if your parents are not practicing the deen according to this way, or if they're practicing the deen according to that way, if your parents are Salafi and we're passive, and there's jihad and this is this and this, then we will lose our children. If you've got on the other spectrum, the very liberal narrative saying, are your parents saying you've got to grow the beard and you've got to wear the hijab and everything like this? Well, no, look at us. This is not the way. We're living in America. We're living in the UK. This is from yesteryear. If we are not connecting with our children in the home and the umbrella and the foundation are upon sunnah, fahm salaf, then that's a finer detail, which is not only destructive in this life, it leads to destruction, the risk of destruction of the hereafter.
Hold on, Akil. Before you go in, I want to ducktail off of this because what you just said is the statement that I made about to the father strapped up. I'm not mentioning no names or anything like that. This was actually reported uh, about someone who is a student, quote unquote, knowledge that actually said this, but they're young. So it goes back again to what we're talking about: the youth having information, not properly disseminating or
Right,
understanding it,
right.
and then they're projecting this type of stuff. Where so the knowledge should make them say, "Oh, if I got proper understanding, I will never speak to my family like that." And just
Exactly.
to also mention what you said, that same verse, Allah says, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Ibn
No,
Kathir mentioned that oof is anything, whether that is disrespectful or taking disrespectful, even in the custom, as far as the tradition. If it's known to be disrespectful, then you shouldn't say it. You shouldn't say it nor to your parents. Allah says when talking about your parents, disobeying your parents and not obeying them in shirk and kufr. Allah says what? وَصَاحِبُهُمَا ma'rufa. But still, you have to be kind towards them. It still doesn't give you a right because they're not Muslims or they're, so forth, that you don't have this respect towards them. You still have to have respect for them, whether they're Muslim or not Muslims. Let alone if they happen to follow a deviant what's name. You just don't respect them and obey them in that deviancy or in that, or that kufr or that shirk, but you still got to respect them, and have that respect towards them. So, Brother Akil, you got anything to say?
What you both mentioned is very, very powerful, and I do think it speaks to the hyper individualistic society that we're living in, and the lack of focus upon familial development. Because when the individual is reared properly inside of a family with family values, you understand, yes, you are an individual and you have value as an individual, but you are part of a greater whole that you are meant to contribute toward and know how to function with. And there is this gap when these hyper individualized persons come out into society with this detachment from the greater society that they're functioning in, right? And it just creates this dysfunction, right? So again, to your point, all of that starts inside of the home with the family, and there is a combat against the influence of social media, with regards to keeping those that are younger steady until they become adults.
Mm.
and I
So,
think Aqil has highlighted some great. He's emphasized this in various contexts, and I think it's very important to pick up on that. Individualism is a strategy.
mm,
Individualism is post enlightenment. Individualism is what has caused the fragmentation of the family home. And it's a powerful strategy because everyone subscribes to it. You had people in the Industrial Revolution all moving to the cities because they wanted to make a go of it in their lives, and they were supported by their families to make a go of it in their lives. You've got that taking place now, and that individualism though is taking place via social media. These very powerful entities that are telling the individual what they can and should not be, and the algorithms that are now tapping into what they're learning and what they like, taking them in particular directions. So suffice it to say, many of us will look at our children and say, I don't recognize them. And suffice it to say, some of them are just showing us a superficiality when really inside what's there, we don't know. So what you're saying, Brother Akil, about individualism, I really want the participants, the audience, to understand when you hear that term individualism, please study it, please look at it. Let's say, for example, what happened in Bosnia, the Balkans conflict, and what happened there, and individuals discarded their faith over the generations until the Bosnian conflict came about, and they saw the division between the Serbs and the Croats was because you were Muslim. We are breaking against from you, for you are Muslim. They had historical constructs and memories of them being Turks, Muslims, and therefore that's why they went through that genocide on
mm,
account of it. And this is the sad thing. Once that was all addressed and the Balkans conflict subsided to an extent, the strategy that then came back in was individualism again. And if you read the recent article yesterday, you've got Bosnians saying, because of what's happening in the Ukraine, Russia, everything like this, we fear the conflict is going to erupt again because the tensions are still there. And this is what individualism does. Me, myself, and I, right down to the point that you are individualistic within your own home. Now, let's do one thing. Let's consider this, my brothers, and for the sisters and those who are watching now. Individualism's taking place in our very home. When we're sitting down as a family, those of us who still got our children around, how many of us are having dialogue, engaging, good conversation? Or how many of us are watching or engaged in our gadget? And there could be 7, 8 of you in a room. When you go to the restaurant, when you're sitting at the dinner table, if any of us allow our children to sit at the dinner table with their phones or anything, individualism has taken root in our homes through these gadgets, and we are allowing it. We are facilitating it. And we might say, yeah, give them their phone time. That's understandable. But when you're giving them that hour, it's taking years. Each hour you give them is detracting from you and your family by how many years? 1, 2, 3, 4? Allah knows best because it hasn't been quantified. So this individualism that you're talking about, Aqil, is so important to understand that, because if that continues, there's got to be elements of personality. We've got our own idiosyncrasies, with our own characters and everything. But you mentioned the key point, the collective is the ultimate. The collective, not the individual. And the hadith says clearly, Shaitan preys upon the lone sheep.
No. And what you're saying is definitely what Islam actually points to is collective, as far as being collective and whole and unity, as far as eating together. The Prophet ﷺ also mentioned about what? The blessings of many hands, actually eating together, as far as eating in, with separate plates. And I know in my own home, I need to actually more adopt this more. I actually have a book from Sheikh Yahya. He brings all of the different narrations of the benefits of eating together and what it does. So it helps fight and combat towards this individualism. But I think that the most strong, fortified thing that we're going to have to fight it, and it really going to take the parents stepping up, and not being lazy, because I think we have become complacent. So we give the child, and I know I'm speaking of myself now, I'm not speaking to nobody else, just, speaking of my own self. We give the child whatever the child wants, right? And we give them the gadget because we keep them out of our way and we can do what we can do. We do this, and that. But like you said, that's a horn, because it's taking away years and years when you do that. And I watch my child, from what my child sees from off of YouTube or so forth, how he interacts with his parents. Oh, you don't love your child. He makes statements such as that because of what he's seeing from off the YouTube.
Right.
You understand? Right. So I do identify what you're saying. And I think that honestly, the most strongest tool that we have, and will remain that, is we have to teach creed. We have to teach our children, ourselves, the creed of Islam. Because with the belief of Islam, we can actually wipe out the concept of there being astronomical heroes flying, this and that, this fantasy type understanding that we all have become accustomed to living in the West, which has spilled over even in the East, right? And this individualism, because there's an agenda being pushed, like you said, the algorithms, everything like that. And I guess we have to really train ourselves on learning who is Allah. You know what I'm saying? The importance of knowing who is Allah.
And what you said,
right, go ahead.
It cannot be emphasized enough, and I'm going to hand it over and go silent. This has been another good session. The learning of Tawheed is what? The unity of Allah's lordship, Asma wa Sifat, Ubudiyya, unity. Yes. Why? What is opposite to that, and what is the sin that cannot be forgiven unless they remove themselves from it? Shirk. Association, many partners. Okay, so Allah speaks always about unity throughout the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ, unity of worship, unity of Jama'ah, and in that is safety. And what we see is shirk running rampant, individualism being underneath that, all of them running at levels, and Muslims embracing that, believing this is the West, this is freedom, freedom. And then I'll conclude on this point. And my Arabic is very sketchy. I understand it, but when I understood that dhulumat was plural, dhulumat, and it's not translated properly in English, levels of darkness. We were brought out of dhulumat ila nur. Nur being singular, clear. If we understand that and we try to put that besides, juxtapose that dhulumat, besides individualism, besides shirk, besides all of liberalism, then we put that framework there, and we need to speak to our children and show these equations and what's actually happening to them. And I'll conclude, that's one of the aspects and reasons why the framework that I developed was to be able to speak to others, because we've got Deen. The Deen is there, but sometimes you need to speak to them within a construct that may be Western, that a construct that may be not pointing to the Deen so obviously, because when we do that, eyes switch closed, ears closed, heart switches off. My parents are talking about Deen again. This is not what I want. But when you show them, these are stages that you will go through, and this is what they look like. And I've had many come to me over the years when they've read some of my work or seen this and said, we identify with these stages. They relate to us. What we're doing with the Fajr Club is giving more flesh to these, so that those who listen, and we've seen in the group, some have come back to us and said, each week I identify with each of the stages you're talking about from a religious perspective that may have been neglected before because switched off because of the Deen, but the way it's being expounded upon, we've lived that. It's so important that we can do that with our children, so they can see, yeah, I'm actually going through that now. I'm at this cognitive stage, and how they're describing my behavior, they don't know what's going on inside of me, but they're explaining it. It's like when we first picked up the Quran. I don't know about you two, and I think it's the same. When I first picked up the Quran, a friend bought it for me, and I looked at the English rendition. I put the book on the top of the shelf without knowing why I'm putting it on top of the shelf, and I didn't read it again. And some of my friends said, why have you, they didn't see me for a week. Okay. I said, what's wrong? I said, who wrote this book? And they weren't Muslim. They said, why are you asking? I said, this book is saying things to me that nobody knows about me. I've never revealed them before to anyone. And this book is talking to me. And that's when the only Muslim who gave us the book said, this is the speech of Allah. And that's one of the things that took me on that journey, that Allah speaking to things that nobody in this dunya could ever know about me. Now, that's us with the Quran. What's happening with social media with our youth? And it's tapping things, and they're doing things that nobody else knows except the algorithm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to mention a couple of things, hopefully briefly. I know we're coming up on time. The first thing I'll say, at the risk of sounding conspiratorial, but no doubt, as Dr. Bacon is saying, the marketing is real. The psychology is real, and it works at a subliminal level, right? So, for example, we say, and I say this to people that have never heard this before, we call it an iPhone, right? I as in the self, right? iPad, right? We say Facebook. Whose face? The face of the individual, right? We say Instagram, but how do we abbreviate? We say IG. It's all this. Everything is about pointing to the self, right? So we have to be considerate of all of that. But at the same time, to Nafis's point, we also have something else that's interesting. As the thought attempts to elude me here. Allahumma musta'an. Go ahead, Nafis. I'm going to come back to this point because it's something that I do want to say. Go ahead, Nafis.
No, I was just going to wrap up pretty much the solutions that was already laid out for us as far as bridging the gap, and I believe that it starts in the home.
Oh, you just reminded me. So
Go
your
ahead.
your point to Aqida. So when we say Aqida, we're speaking to theology, we're speaking to spirituality, right? And what we should understand is that it is through Aqida that we attain knowledge of self. You attain knowledge of who you are as an individual and your place and function in the cosmos through Aqida, right?
Right.
That's what that is. You learn who your Lord is, who you are, and your relationship with yourself, your Lord, and everyone else that is around you, and everything else that is around you. This is what it is.
Right.
So it is you understanding yourself internally and developing your internal so that you learn how to function in the external. And this is what the
Mm,
message of Allah
nice
Subhanahu wa
point.
ta'ala mentioned.
Point.
"Akmalu mu'minina imanan ahsanuhum khuluqa." The most complete of the people in their spirituality are those who are best in their character, right?
Right.
The people that are most developed internally with knowledge of self are those that are able to express and function themselves externally with others in their interactions, which is what character is. But go ahead, Nafis.
Now, just to sum it up so we can close up, inshallah ta'ala, we didn't have any questions this week. Just to let you guys know, we covered a lot. It was a lot of points. There's some stuff that you guys brought up from Dr. Hawk Baker and Aqil Ingram that I want to make an individual show of it by itself. I really want to explore individualism, some of the different agendas, understand the algorithm. I want to really get into that. I mean, I really think that that's beneficial to understand how to combat a lot of these different agendas that is pushed on to us and our children, and some of the solutions we can use. But just to cap, the to bridge the gap between the elders and the youth, there are prophetic advice as far as respect, as far as honor, as far as from the youth side to recognize their rights. And then there are mercy that should be or compassion should be shown from the elder side, and the elders should set it off. They should be the ones to set it off. But I believe that starts, the environment starts within the home, where the child learns to develop this respect and fulfilling the rights of their parents first and foremost, so that they can extend that outwardly. But because of that gap and those things which cause that gap, like individualism, like social media in and of itself isn't what we're saying that is bad, because it can be used for something good. But what we're saying is there is an agenda with it, and
Right.
understanding that caused that gap. So once you remove that connectivity and cause disconnect on any level, as you said, then it brings about a gap and a wider gap. And I think we have a lot to work on. This was what we was able to bring with this show. Hopefully people were able to benefit. If you have any questions pertaining to what pertains to the show, you can direct it to any of my co-hosts. If you have any statements or things like that, please put it in the Fudger Club or put it in the comment section. We thank you for tuning in. We know we got to go start our day, inshallah. We thank the co-hosts for coming in and putting in their input by the permission of Allah. Jalla. Anything else anyone of you want to say before we close out? Sorry, this is Nafis Abu Zaid here with the Fudger Club and my co-host.
This is your brother Aqil Ingram.
And this is your brother Abdul Haq Baker.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Fajr Club. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.